here and participating in town government a priority. Bless our president, our governor, our town officials, and all those who give their energies to public service. And be present in these proceedings that your peace, justice, and compassion may govern what is said and done here. Amen.
Okay, you can reopen the doors back there and let people in. Let's see. We should probably say welcome to the 262nd annual town meeting. And we had a first tonight. I think some of you may recognize it. What was the first? Does anybody know what it is? Yes, it was the woman giving the invocation the first time in 262 years. I want the tag of male chauvinist pig now to be removed from me for at least 6 months. But thank you very much, Reverend Sale. You did a great job. At the end of last year's annual town meeting, when the audience was about the size it is tonight, I would say, we asked you to fill out a survey on annual town meetings. I hesitate to ask how many of you remember that, but about 150 of you turned them in, and I wanted to thank you for doing that. You had some very good suggestions. Of course, we're not going to take any of them, but you did have some very good suggestions, and I do appreciate that, and we have taken some of them. One of them that I took to heart personally was that you said parliamentary procedure from time to time can become a little bit confusing. And so, as you can see, if you turn your warrants to page 89, page 90, 91, and lopping over a little bit into 92, is some guidelines for parliamentary procedure, the kind of articles that we use here at Acton's town meeting, and some relatively arbitrary rules that we use to run the meeting. I know all of you have studied them, but carefully, and so I won't do what I normally do, which is go through all of those rules at the beginning of town meeting. I myself was forced to read them over, so I should be a little sharper than last year when I missed up and it was pointed out that I allowed debate on an item that wasn't debatable. Isn't that true? I did. And I won't do that again. I'll probably make some other incredible faux pas, but now you'll all be able to point that out to me, which I look forward to with reckless abandon. We will start out by introducing to you some of your town officials, not all of them, but some of them. And I would ask the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Nancy Tavernier, to introduce to you the Board of Selectmen and the people at this table.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'll start to the left with Kathy Belbin, our town clerk, Mike Callahan, town council, Don Johnson, town manager, Dory Hunter, vice chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Wayne Fredericks, clerk of the Selectmen, Herman Kabikoff, Bill Mullen, and behind me, Sharon Summers, the town accountant, and Andy Nikolaev, who is visiting this country from Moscow. He's an exchange student this year, and he's also Don Johnson's intern, and of course, assistant town manager John Murray. Welcome to everybody.
And I'd like to ask David Steinhelper, the chairman of the Finance Committee, to introduce the members of the Finance Committee. Okay.
Good evening from my right, your left. Pardon me. Tom Mackey, who's the vice chair, Chuck Olmstead, Sharon Gaudette, Jean Suffley, Retta Robert, Bob Miller, John Predeville, who's the clerk, and Sidney Johnson.
Good, thank you, David. Well, I think we're ready to begin. And over the last few years, we have begun with a consent calendar. And you will remember what we do under the consent calendar. We put a motion before you. We have about 18 articles, I guess, on the consent calendar, roughly that number. We will read down those articles. And if any two people in the audience want us to remove that article from the consent calendar, they will just yell out, "Hold," and we will remove that article and take it up in its normal turn. At the end, we will have, hopefully, some articles left on the consent calendar, and we will vote them without debate. So anything that's on the consent calendar that isn't taken off it by you will be voted as a single motion with no debate. Is that clear to everybody? Okay. Let us begin. Yes? Which article requires 2/3, just for my edification? What will happen is, let me just get that. Yeah. Yes, there may be. Normally, the consent calendar is passed unanimously. If there is a question by anybody and they want to take it off, they can remove it from the consent calendar. We'll take it up in its normal fashion. But it has been our experience that the consent calendar, that which is left, is passed unanimously. Should it not be passed unanimously, we will do some very fancy dancing in the early part of this meeting. We may count the way we normally do for 2/3 when there are very few people who vote against an article and most people who are voting in favor of it. All right? The motion will be this. Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town take up the 18 articles as listed in the consent calendar on pages 21 and 22 of the warrant, except that the dollar amount in Article 5 shall be amended to read $183,650, and the dollar amount in Article 7 shall be amended to read $27,758. Do I hear a second? Okay, now I would tell you those numbers, I believe, are the ones that are in the warrant article. They were only different in the consent calendar. Now I will go through the 18 articles. I will say the article by number, then what it's for, and if you would like to hold it, just yell out "hold." If I hear two people, it will come off the consent calendar. All right, we will begin. Article 3, Council on Aging Van Enterprise Budget. Article 5, Septage Disposal Enterprise Budget. Article 7, Miriam School Offset Receipts Budget. Article 34, Accessory Uses. Article 35, Special Permit Exemption. Article 38, Corrections and Clarifications. Article 48, Chapter 90 Highway Reimbursement Program. Article 49, Emergency Disaster Aid Appropriations. Article 50, Relocate Ledge Rock. Article 51, Sale of Town Land. Article 52, Abandon Easement. Article 53, Street Acceptances. I hear one hold. I hear two holds. We will hold Article 53 dealing with street acceptances. Article 54, Charter Road Easement. Article 55, School Street Easement. Article 56, School Street Easement - Hancock. Okay, we have two holds. Article 57, Accept Gift, Marshall Crossing. I hear one hold, I hear two, hold, I hear three. Article 58, Accept Gift - New View. Article 59, Accept Gift - Dentino. Okay, I have 15 articles then that have not been held, with Articles 53, 56, and 57 being held. The motion has been made and seconded. I will now take a vote on the consent calendar. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we will move to Article 1, dealing with choosing town officers. There will be 6 motions and 6 votes under this article, as we normally have. Well, we normally have a number in any event. Just for my edification, how many are here for the first time to a town meeting? Good, quite a few people. Great, welcome, welcome. Hope you enjoy yourselves. Yes. Was someone on the Finance Committee, did they say they were on for the first time? It becomes a little more understandable as we move into it. We're going through something that's a little esoteric to begin with. Okay, the first motion under Article 1 is Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town fix the compensation for elected officers as shown in the warrant. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nobody standing or running to a microphone, we will vote. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. I'm always glad when that. I've always wondered why someone didn't get up and say, you've got a conflict of interest there, since my salary is right in there, same as it's been for 21 years. But don't say I think I'm dissatisfied with it. All right, the second vote will be a series of nominations, as you know, to various organizations. Malcolm S. McGregor nominates Edward Bennett as a trustee of the West Acton Firemen's Relief Fund, term to expire in the year 2000. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I'll close nominations. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The motion carries unanimously. William Clower nominates Alan Nelson as a trustee of Acton's Firemen's Relief Fund, term to expire in 2000. Are there any other nominations? Seeing no one standing, we'll close nominations. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Shirley Toll nominates Mabel Grecola as a trustee of the Charlotte Goodnow Fund, term to expire in 2000. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none and hearing none, I'll close nominations. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. John Powers nominates Edwin H. Miller as a trustee of the Elizabeth White Fund, term to expire in the year 2000. Are there any other nominations? Seeing no one standing, we'll close nominations. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Robert Loomis nominates Madeline Kataboski as a trustee of the Citizens Library Association of West Acton, term to expire in the year 2000. Are there any other nominations? Seeing no one standing, I declare nominations closed. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Article 2, dealing with hearing and accepting reports. Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town accept the reports of the various town officers and boards as set forth in the 1996 town report, and that the moderator calls for any other reports. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any comment or debate from anyone on the motion as read? I'll take a vote on it and then ask if there are any other reports. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Are there any other reports to be given at this time? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, with the town's permission, I'd like to present the Kelly's Corner circulation plan. I'm not sure, I may already have the town's permission at this point.
No, it's more important to get mine, probably.
All right, with your permission.
That's okay. How long is your report, sir?
I will limit it to 5 minutes.
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Do you have some slides?
Just overhead transparent.
Okay, fine.
Probably already used up the first minute of my 5 minutes. Good evening. My name is Richard Croswell. I'm a member of the Planning Board and also chair of the Kelly's Corner Planning Committee. Tonight I'm going to present a brief summary of the Kelly's Corner Business Circulation Plan. At last year's town meeting, the town voted to funds to hire a consultant to conduct a study to develop a circulation plan for the Kelly's Corner Business District. A consultant team was selected, led by the firm of Howard Stein Hudson Associates and supported by TAM Consultants and the firm of Whiteman and Tainer. The consultant worked closely with the Kelly's Corner Planning Committee in the development of the circulation plan. The main objectives of the circulation plan were to create a circulation plan that would help achieve the town's vision of the area as an urban village that fosters pedestrian and circulation amenities while maintaining reasonable vehicular capacity. In the fall of 1996, traffic and license plate counts were conducted as well as surveys of the patrons in the Kelly's Corner area. Some of the results of the data showed that almost 3/4 of the traffic on Route 27 and 111 in the Kelly's Corner area is through traffic. Almost everyone drives to the area, and only about half the people who make a trip to Kelly's Corner actually go through the Route 27-111 intersection. Patrons visit an average of 1 store per trip to the area. And finally, the overall parking supply is ample, although not necessarily balanced within the area. Some of the assumptions that were used for the development of the circulation plan were an average floor area ratio, or FAR, of 0.6. The FAR is the ratio of buildable area to total land area. In this case, an FAR 0.6 represents roughly 1.2 million square feet. Current zoning conditionally allows an FAR of 0.4, roughly 800,000 square feet. And as you can see by the chart, existing conditions today represent an FAR of roughly 0.2, or 400,000 square feet. Other assumptions were that parking within the area would be surface parking, although it's not necessarily limited to that. Structured parking is not ruled out. And finally, that there would be a mix of land uses such as office, retail, and housing, which would encourage multi-purpose trips to the area. Some of the major planning principles that were developed for the Kelly's Corner circulation plan were the creation of a street hierarchy. This would consist of regional roads such as Route 27 and 111, village and shopping streets which would occur within the quadrants of the area, and finally pedestrian and bicycle paths. Improvements would also be made to routes 27 and 111, including the intersection, which would be phased in with the development of the area. Curb cuts along Route 27 and 111 would be reduced and would be replaced with village street intersections. In addition, the village streets running within the quadrants would provide access to parking and improve local circulation. And finally, sidewalks and pedestrian amenities would be enhanced. The outcome of the circulation plan developed by the consultant includes, first of all, an urban village conceptual plan. Also, a conceptual design of the Route 27-111 intersection, as well as village streets and their related intersections. Also, an outline of future zoning changes and phasing recommendations was contained in the report, and cost estimates and funding sources. So where do we go from here? The circulation plan that I have summarized tonight will be used as a valuable planning tool for future development in the Kelly's Corner area. While some of the plan is specific, such as the treatment of the Route 27-111 intersection, other areas are very conceptual and can only be developed in more detail when future growth occurs within the area. And finally, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the members of the Kelly's Corner Planning Committee, both past and present members, who have volunteered their time and put in a tremendous effort over the last 4 years in developing both the Kelly's Corner Plan, which was presented to town meeting last year, and tonight's presentation for the Kelly's Corner Business District Circulation Plan. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other reports at this time? I expected one other. There's no other? Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the one I expected.
Okay,
Mrs. Huber.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at this town meeting. My name is Connie Huber, and I'm the president of the Acton Memorial Library Foundation, which was established 6 years ago in 1991 for the purpose of supplementing and enriching the Acton Memorial Library's financial resources. The generosity of Acton's citizens since that time has enabled the library to be open on Sunday afternoons, to enlarge the book collections, and to acquire more computer equipment for public use. We would like to report to the town that the foundation, in addition to its annual appeal, plans a major campaign to establish a much-needed Acton Memorial Library Endowment Fund to supplement the library's present resources, which struggle to meet today's needs. We plan to begin this campaign in the spring and to continue the endowment campaign over the next several years. During this time, we will be soliciting large corporations as well as our own local businesses and private citizens. If you didn't receive our handout at the library table outside the auditorium, we would encourage you to pick up a copy. It describes in more detail the what, the why, and when of the endowment fund and how we plan to acknowledge and establish a permanent recognition of our donors. The trustees of the foundation and of the Acton Memorial Library hope that you will support us in this endeavor. Thank you for your attention.
One quick announcement. There is a Mercury KC1-VS, KC1-VS, a Mercury with the lights on, a Mercury Sable, perhaps, with the lights on. I think we have, either he has the lights on or there's some other urgent need. Article 2 we have just done. Article 3 we passed over on consent, or we passed on consent. We'll move to Article 4, Nursing Enterprise Budget. Mr. Fredericks moves that the town raise and appropriate $587,682 for the purpose of providing public health nursing services, and to raise such amount, $587,682, be transferred from the Nursing Enterprise Fund. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Mr. Fredericks, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As you can imagine, we spent the last couple of weeks going over all the details, polishing the reports, and making corrections, and they spelled my name wrong. But I missed it too. This sounds like a real big number, and you probably are wondering why would we be spending $580-some thousand on a nursing budget. Well, there's a few surprises in the works for you because it turns into a no-brainer, and I think you'll like it as we go. What we're trying to do is make this presentation also an awareness presentation so people know that we have nursing services. I think I probably lived here 15 years before I knew that we had any visiting nurse services at all. And here's the big surprise. The nursing service is funded by Medicare reimbursement, Medicaid reimbursement, third-party reimbursement, meaning insurance companies, people health insurance, and private pay on a sliding fee schedule. What this means is the lower the income, the lower the fees. So it is done proportionally. This is the important part, no tax contribution. It actually gets better as we go because the fund, the nursing service actually generates a surplus every year. Now into the sales pitch. The nursing service provides obviously visiting nurse and a whole raft of public health services. Blood lead tests for children, big wave in August and September as kids are going into school. Regular cholesterol tests, flu clinics. It came as a surprise to me to know that we have 20 nursery schools in Acton, which all get inspected by the nursing service. The tobacco cessation program is mainly for students, and there are two phases to this. It's actually a voluntary and a mandatory. The voluntary being during school hours, there are cessation programs that are given to students. The mandatories are kids that are caught smoking on school grounds have to come in after school, and they get the cessation program. This is something new started this year, and it is a volunteer mentoring program where we are actually funding a professional caseworker that will recruit and screen and orient volunteers. And basically what this is it is a service offered to children in need. Now what does that mean? Well, single-parent families, dysfunctional families, children that would rather be dropped out, they'd rather be doing drugs, they could be alcohol dependent. So basically what it is, it's a new program, and it's a way to try to reach to the kids. This is also a new program. We've just started this actually. It's a application for accreditation to the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations. And basically what this is a central clearinghouse for accreditation. It's like having your certificate, and everybody's getting it, so we're on the bandwagon to get it too. It's expected to probably be completed by the end of the year. It will cost somewhere in the $20,000 or $30,000 range, but it's allowed for in the budget. And this is the status of the enterprise fund. We started out with $437,000 in the fund. The proposed budget of $587, the estimated revenues of $560, which gives us an ending fund balance of $409,622. So the budget has, the fund has gone down, but the enterprise is expected to show an excess of somewhere in the $40,000 to $60,000 per year range. Summary of this article. It's supported by revenues, which is why it's called an enterprise fund. It has a cash flow into the fund and handles all of its own expenses. It provides home care and public health services. It's open to all residents. And we even put the phone number on here in case somebody knows anybody that needs a service or needs it themselves. Be happy to answer any questions. Hearing none, the selectmen recommend this article.
Just to take that, would you turn that off, please, Wayne? Thank you. Is a comment from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval.
Comments from the town meeting members? Seeing nobody standing, we will vote. All in favor of the motion as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Let's see, item 5 we dealt with on consent. Item 6, the Neswick Enterprise budget. Mr. Mullen moves that the town raise and appropriate $1,473,014 for the purpose of solid waste disposal, and to raise such amount, $806,014, be transferred from the Neswick Enterprise Fund, and $667,000 be raised and appropriated. Do I hear a second? Second. Mr. Mullen, do you have some view graphs, Bill? Yes, I do. Okay.
Good evening. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about the Neswick Enterprise Fund, and actually right at the end of it I'm going to talk about a brief synopsis of an exciting plan that we have that deals with some of the very difficult issues that have faced us over the last several years. Just to put this in context, we're on article number 6, the first of a number of articles that are going to be coming up under the town operating plans. The proposed expenses for fiscal year 1998 are $1,473,000. Composed, as you can see, the largest portion is of disposal. Just as a backup, in case somebody doesn't know, Neswick is Northeast Solid Waste Consortium, which is our refuse transfer program operated out of the transfer station. In order to pay for that $1,473,000, we have 3 main sources. One is stickers sold at the transfer station. The other is an amazing program that was developed by the entrepreneurial staff of Dick Howe, who was the head of our DPW, contributing a very, very significant portion of our revenue here. This essentially has established a spot market in trash and has contributed very significantly to our ability to manage this problem, a source of revenue we did not have just 3 years ago. These are the revenues on year to year over the last several years. And you can note that in 1996, the large spike is when the commercial spot market revenues started to kick in, very much to our advantage. In terms of the sticker fees, we have kept the sticker fees at $100 per year for the last several years. And as we have voted that in this year as well. Just in order to look at it at a time value of money basis or a constant dollar basis, in effect this is a decline in the value of the cost of the sticker. If you look at it from a 1988 basis, it's below $80, but basically time value of money, since the peak, it's trending down. Once again, on a nominal dollar basis, this is the tax subsidy of $667,000. That is what we're talking about here, as $667,000. We're keeping that level, and on a constant dollar basis, once again, a modest decline in real dollars. That is essentially the story of the Neswick contract this year. It's very much the same, very much constancy, trying to use entrepreneurialism to make up major gaps in this very volatile portion of our budget. Briefly, very briefly, I'm just going to talk about the plan that we have, because there's, as you'll note, there's a very sizable dollar amount in the fund balance, which has been the object of some desire over the years. Currently, it's at $1.5 million. While our program is very good right now and stable, there are many, many difficult problems. And I can assure you that I'm only dealing on the surface right now of this extraordinarily complex program of trash to energy. The MRI contract, that's our contractor, is constantly being negotiated and renegotiated. There's continuous negotiation. Our assistant town manager, John Murray, spends an enormous amount of his time monitoring that contract. The costs are still going to skyrocket, which you will see in the next few slides. There's very heavy backloaded debt on this. There was a decision about air pollution control costs initially, and there's varying dollar amounts, anywhere ranging from the low end of $30 million to $66 million for the whole consortium. We had a bit of positive news in that a circuit judge in Utah tossed this out. The latest news is that that's gone back, and now we're back dealing with this issue. But that indicates that this is wrapped up in not only just disposing of trash, but in legal battles as well. GAT is guaranteed annual tonnage. We have to pay under this put of pay contract for the amount that was originally agreed to, regardless of whether we bring trash to this to the plant, and it's 2.6 times of actual tonnage. And our assumptions constantly change with everything from interest rates to the cost of energy. So we are not out of the woods. This is the annual MRI debt service. And as you can see, this is the light blue, the bottom blue is the debt before we deal with the scrubbers, scribber, as we have here. What color is that? Aqua represents the scrubber debt, or the air pollution control costs that are overlaid on that. If you look on a per ton basis, you can see that we're going from under $100 to nearly $200 at the end of fiscal year 1905. This represents a huge cost to our town, and one which we've had to manage as best we can. Now to the plan. If you take all of those charts, operating costs, our portion of the debt, our portion of the air pollution control costs, that's what this graph looks like. The plan is to take several sources of revenue. If you look at the light blue, you'll note that it's about $667,000, and that is level funded. Once again, from a nominal dollar basis, it'll be level funded. From a constant dollar basis, that should be declining. So far, our tax contribution will be going down in real dollars. Stickers also are held constant at the $100 contribution. Once again, in constant dollars, that cost should go down. The very exciting, and I cannot overstate the value of this to our community, because when you total up a lot of these things, it equates a lot of other services. If we didn't have this program, that pink in the middle of brokerage represents the program that Dick Howe has come up with in his entrepreneurial government. Done a spectacular job for that. The aqua is the interest on our funded balance. And here's where it starts to kick in. With the fund balance that we have, we start to draw down when the revenues that we have from these three main programs of taxes, stickers, and brokerage are no longer sufficient to cover that huge debt service. And we will start to draw down that fund balance. At the end of that, when that is exhausted based upon our current projections, there is another source of funds which we've been contributing to the MRI and the NESWIC, called a TIP stabilization fund. And this is actually the town's money that over time, for appropriate and specific reasons, we can draw down. Bottom line is that based upon this program, we will be able to keep the tax contribution level funded. We'll be able to keep the sticker fees level funded. and we will be able to pay for this debt service. And that's why we think it's a very good program. Based upon that, I recommend the article.
Do we have comment from the Finance Committee? Mr. Mackey?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee obviously recommends that we support this effort, but I would like to add at this time that here is an example of your town staff using initiative and trying to keep the tax rate down. And I think we should be very thankful of that. Accordingly, we recommend that you approve this.
Well, before we open it up to general discussion, I think we're talking about thinking up this idea, which to a great extent belonged to Don Johnson and John Murray, and the implementation of the idea as well as the planning of it with Dick Howe. Some of you may not know these gentlemen, so if you just stand and be recognized. Dick, come on, stand up. You did a heck of a job. All right, the motion is open for general discussion. Nobody wishes to discuss it? We'll vote on it. All in favor? Please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Article 7, we have passed on the consent calendar. We're now up to Article 8, but before we get into Article 8, I believe we have a general financial presentation which will set the stage for a number of the financial articles that we're going to deal with in this town meeting, and that presentation will be made by the chairman of the Finance Committee, David Steinhelper.
Good evening and welcome to the town meeting on behalf of the Finance Committee. In this presentation, I hope to be able to answer a few of the questions. The questions I'm proposing for this is, for the proposed operating budgets in the town warrant, can we afford the proposed increases using our current projected revenues? Also, what is free cash? How much is used this year? Do we have sufficient remaining? For the debt exclusion capital items, what projects are expected in the next few years? How do we pay for the large capital projects? And the thing that we all, of course, all dread is paying for it. And can this be done, and how does it affect your taxes? This slide shows the projected revenues and operating budgets. All figures are shown in thousands of dollars. I won't read the individual numbers, but you can see that we are able to pay for the operating budgets with not much remaining, $59,000. This does not cover capital items or many of the individual requests that may appear on this town warrant. You might ask, how have the revenues changed since last year? Our revenue sources are up. They're up by a total of 7.6% over last year. But the property tax, the base property tax increase is a function of new growth, and because last year the Board of Selectmen voted not to increase the property taxes at the full 2.5% rate, but will add to it in 1988. These numbers are very much affected by economic conditions, so that if the economy turns down, the revenues will then go down. Right? The requested operating budgets in this town warrant are an increase over last year. We have the municipal budget up 0.9%, public schools 8.9%, regional schools 9.6%, Minuteman down 35.5%. The Minuteman budget decrease is primarily due to declining enrollment at Minuteman. Neswick, as you've seen in the presentation, 0% increase from appropriated dollars. Okay. This leads to a total operating budget increase of 5.5% and revenue increases, as we've seen, at 7.6%. Our revenue increases pay for the operating increases this year. But how did we pay for it last year? As you can see from these numbers, we went into free cash. We went into through the use of free cash last year of $2 million, and as you will see in future slides, we will be looking at a $1 million use of free cash this year to pay for operating budgets, capital expenses, and other warrant article items. This year, our use is lower, but it is affordable this year, but it's tight. Which brings us to a question: what is free cash? You may have seen this term in the newspapers or heard it at previous town meetings. Free cash is unrestricted available funds. It's generated when our actual revenues exceed budget estimates or expenses are less than budget. Free cash is not a predictable source of funds and should not be considered such. How did we get to our current free cash balance? Here are the numbers. Last year's budget minus what, as you saw, we used last year at town, we voted at town meeting. Municipal spending under budget, those are dollars that are appropriated but are returned to the town coffers because they're not spent during the year. Okay. Unexpected revenues of 34, and there was a timing difference this year. You never know when those will occur. To reach our current cash balance of almost $2.4 million. So, how will the non-operating budget warrant articles, which we have in our warrant in front of you, be funded? We start with the remaining $59,000. We add the free cash. We get the total funds that we have. This is what we have to work with in this town meeting. From this, we must pay for the following items if they are approved by the town meeting. The requested municipal items are, and I've listed the articles. The requested school items, and I have again listed the articles for the total requested items. This does not include Articles 9 and 10, which the Board of Selectmen have recommended against. It also does not include any articles which might be moved from the floor. Okay, so we would be using $1.5 million of free cash. What, $1,446,000 free cash. This gives us a projected ending free cash, which is less than last year's. The recommended level of free cash we've recommended at previous town meetings and is recommended by the Mass Municipal Association Finance Committees is 5%. You can see that we don't meet this level. We didn't meet it last year, but we're lower this year. Can we live with this? Yes, short term, but we need to be careful. We now have reached a point where the town should start becoming somewhat cautious on this. As long as we're close to this number, we're okay, but we don't want to take precipitous drops. As was presented last year, we have a 5-year capital plan. The Board of Selectmen, school committees, and Finance Committee meet as a group in a framework called Acton 2001. This was originally formed last year to look at 5 years into the future for the purpose of planning the needs of the town. It continued this year. We added a year to the old plan and adjusted it. The plan provides a framework for discussion. It combines municipal and school needs. It shows a responsible and feasible method to finance projects if the town approves them. This plan is supported by the FinCom, Board of Selectmen, and school committees. The plan does not include operating and maintenance expenses. These must be included in future operating budgets for the town or schools as appropriate. The plan will change over time. It should be renewed and updated every year. The plan, as such, is arrived through a consensus process. We use this method to reach agreement among the boards. It is not a voted process, and as part of my speech, I'd like to thank Bart Wendell and Sadie Stone, who've acted as the facilitators for these meetings. As you entered the town meeting, you should have picked up a handout about the 5-year capital plan. It looks something like this. I'm not going to put it up on the overhead because it's detailed and it would not make a good exhibit. However, the major items are included on this overhead. For this year, we have 2 articles, a school capital item of $665,000 and the Morrison land. Okay. This fall, there may be a special town meeting which would call for a school expansion. Okay. In the year 2000, we have a school in town capital. I'm not sure, and the Acton 2001 group was not sure exactly what this would comprise or the total dollar, but this was an agreed upon dollar to use, and a fire and police and fire facility. In the year 2000, we have 3 items. Again, all of them are very rough numbers. These are placeholders. The boards don't know what the costs will be for these items. However, we don't want to imply that the process ends in the year 2001. The process will continue. There are further needs that the town has. So what does the capital plan show? It shows the boards are working together to plan for the future of Acton. That there is an average incremental increase of 1.4% over the 5 years. That you can find out by looking at your 5-year plan that was handed out. The plan will evolve as the economy needs and costs change, and it provides a rational basis for evaluating decisions at this town meeting with regards to the large capital items. So, what's it cost to you? The chart here shows the future costs of the budgets, capital projects. I've included a possible general override for next year of $2 million. At this point, we can't say if there will definitively be an override request or its size, but this is a projection. And I also have, for those of you who don't like bar charts but like line graphs, I've got it in a line graph too. So, finances are in acceptable condition. There are sufficient funds this year without a general override. The 5-year capital plan is paid for using debt exclusion overrides. I want to make sure people clear that a debt exclusion override is an override where you pay for only the debt of that issue, and it's planned ahead of time. And given the current rates of growth in revenues, operating budgets, and non-debt exclusion capital requirements, I believe that an operating general override may be needed for next year. That's it.
Okay, we will now take the motion. We now take the motion under Article 8. Mrs. Tavernier moves that the town budget for the period July 1st, 1997 to June 30th, 1998 in the amount of $12,572,438 be raised and appropriated in its entirety, except that $69,435 be transferred from the Cemetery Trust Fund for cemetery use, and further that the town manager be authorized to sell, trade, or dispose of vehicles being replaced, and to expend any proceeds received for such new vehicles. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Tavernier.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good evening. As I was preparing my budget presentation for this town meeting, I decided to look back to the last time I was chairman to see what theme I'd use that year. Believe it or not, every year the chairman writes their own presentation, and I guess at least I have been choosing a theme each year. But so when I look back, the last time I was chairman was 1993, and what a year that was. Do you remember how many people were at town meeting that year? Over 1,400. In fact, that was the year we lost our first operating override, which we had normally done in the annual election before town meeting. And then a group of well-meaning citizens organized an effort to restore the cuts that were going to be made at town meeting, which forced us to have another override election. When the electorate heard about the plans, we had a mini revolution on our hands. And it was characterized as a reconsideration of a ballot vote, and it was not well received, and predictably the second override failed also. The opening night of town meeting brought in an overflow crowd. Many of you were here, I'm sure, and it was beyond the capacity of this auditorium, and people had to send the overflow into the cafeteria and the library and so forth. It was bedlam, needless to say, and it was pouring rain when we all came in. After the moderator called the meeting to order, it was clear immediately that we were not going to be able to continue because the people in the overflow areas could not hear the proceedings, and that is a legal requirement. You're not required to give people a seat, but they are supposed to be able to hear the proceedings. So we had to send people home, back out in the pouring rain, and we were forced to come back 2 weeks later to the high school field house where I presented the budget to over 1,400 people. I remember thinking then that when I ran for office, I never expected to be standing in the middle of a field house on a raised dais presenting a budget to 1,400 people and then talking about budgets and numbers. It felt like it should be something a much higher plane than that. But that was some experience and some year. And we've come a long way since then, and we've had to work very hard to restore your confidence in us. We, the members of the joint boards, have also had to work very hard to find common ground with each other, first within our boards and then between our boards. And we've done this with the help of professional facilitators Bart Wendell and Sandy Stone, as David Steinhelper mentioned, and in a consensus process that we have coined Acton 2001. Also, on a monthly basis, the leadership of the schools and towns and the administrators from both have met since 1993 to share concerns with each other and to coordinate fiscal planning. And I feel we're now reaping the rewards of this hard work. Last year, we brought to you 2 major quality of life projects: a new expanded library and a large community recreation area in North Acton. And this is the first opportunity I have had to thank you for that overwhelming support that you gave to the town for those 2 projects, not only here at town meeting, but then again at the ballot. So on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, the town staff, the Memorial Library trustees, and the Recreation Commission, thank you for your support last year. Now for the budget presentation. What is the theme of my budget presentation for this year? What's the most exciting thing I can tell you about the budget? Well, this is it. This is all I've been able to come up with, 0.9%. Now, you may wonder what's so exciting about that, but as you heard David say, that's it. That is the total increase in the municipal budget this year. But the budget I'm presenting this year, I think we need to liken it to the eye of the hurricane. Our radar screen tells us that there's trouble up ahead, but we're going to give you a 1-year respite from some tax buffeting. Last year, we were able to address some of our most pressing growth pressures by adding a small number of people to the staff, but this year we're only adding a few hours to a couple of departments. After next year, though, we will have to increase our budget to support the expanded library and the creation of the new recreation area, and to address other pressures that we see coming. Growth impact seems to affect the municipal side a little differently. They come in 20-year cycles, and we're at the beginning of the cycle now, and we see that the increases are going to begin more significantly with our budget in 1999. The Finance Committee just presented the clarion call to the future operating shortfalls, which actually began this year, as you noted, but will be more severe starting in '99. So we're holding the line now in the budget, and we'll be asking you to hold the line too in the next 2 articles. This is the town budget for fiscal year 1998. This is also in page 13 of your warrant. It's a summary of the town object budget by major category. It shows the past 2 budget years and the proposed fiscal year 98 plan. Our proposed 98 budget is 0.9% higher than the current budget, and the total increase is a little over $112,000, which is 7.5 cents on the tax rate, or $18 on the average $240,000 home. The categories that we use maybe takes a little bit of defining. I found that I needed to know what the staff meant by them. Personal services are wages. They're going up 3.11%. Services category would be all the contractual services, legal, utilities, highway equipment rentals, consultants, that kind of thing. The supplies would be the normal things you'd expect to be supplies, gas and diesel, paper, sand, salt, that kind of thing. Intergovernmental category is local teacher salary deferral. Other appropriations, a large dollar item, that is the health insurance and our other kinds of insurances. Major items are departmental capital, that would be the 4 police cruisers we're buying this year, equipment, other office equipment and so forth, sidewalk, road paving. And the debt service has increased to reflect the votes that were taken on the library and the North Acton recreation area last year. This pie chart is also on page 14 in your warrant, and it's a graphic view of the previous slide on the object budget, and it shows that 3/4 of our budget is dedicated to funding personnel. And the second pie chart shows that of that personnel cost, 29% of it costs the benefit. It covers the benefits that are provided to our employees. The town of Acton employs an equivalent of 194.7 full-time equivalents. Those are FTEs. If you remember last year, someone said, what's an FTE? The full-time equivalent. It's not all full-time people, but it's the equivalent. And those are the employees exhibited in this graph. And it shows that we have really held the line on number of employees for the past 6 years. I teach a citizenship course to Boy Scouts, and one of the questions is name the major employers in the town, and they have never yet gotten right local government. When you add local government being the schools in the town, we are one of the major employers in Acton, so we're certainly doing our share to support the local economy. The next overhead shows total town spending. Every year we like to show this chart to just to compare where we are compared to the baseline year of 1989. This shows the changes from year to year of total town spending, budget, and all spending warrant articles together, total town spending. The red line is the actual budget growth or lack of growth, as in some cases of 1989 to 95. But now we're making ground, and we're now at 9.5% above the starting point year of 1989. The green line on this overhead shows you the increases that we would have been allowed if we just stuck to Prop 2.5% increase every year. That shows you where we would be now. And the red line, the blue line on top shows you where we would be if we had increased our budget at the rate of inflation. So to summarize, we're actually now spending 9.5% more than we did 9 years ago. And if I had done an adjusted number, because the dollar does decline, I could show you that we are spending about exactly what we were in 1889. Prop 2.5 would have allowed us an increase of almost 25%, and keeping up with inflation would have put us 40% higher than 9 years ago. How do we pay for municipal services? You probably thought only through your property taxes, and I know that's how it felt, particularly last week when you got your tax bill. This graphic does indeed show you the dominant feature of local property taxes as part of the revenue stream that pays for local government. The purple bar is the property tax. Other revenues are in the yellow bar, and that would be fees, building fees, all kinds of departmental revenues. And the pink is state aid. This, you can see why we use 1989 as our baseline year.
Excuse me, if you want to speak, you have to get my permission to do it. That's fine.
I'm sorry, I think the colors got reversed when we updated it this year. The top line is the state revenue, right? Wait a minute. Okay, I think you're right. Yellow is state aid. Okay, sorry about that. Yellow is state aid, And the point about that is that you can see we're still not receiving state aid at the level we were in 1989, but we are getting increases, particularly under education reform, which came in at 93, and you can see the increases there. But this is the breakdown of the total revenue. Okay, untaxed levy capacity, as the town manager mentioned in his warrant message, Acton's financial pictures remain strong as we look ahead to the next year. In each of the past 2 fiscal years, the Board of Selectmen chose to reward the confidence of the Acton voter by leaving untaxed levy capacity on the table. This means we did not tax the full amount that is allowable under Prop 2.5. This chart shows you how these decisions benefited you. In all the years between 1989 and 1995, we only left untaxed a total of $146,000. But in 1996, we actually reduced your taxes from the prior year's level and left untaxed some $837,000 shown here. And then this past fall, we added to that by leaving another $519,000 on the table untaxed. So those 2 years combined show a savings to you, the taxpayer, of $1.4 million. However, I can assure you that we'll probably not be making that same claim here next year because the Finance Committee has just shown you that we will need to tax at every penny just to maintain the current level of services. This chart is also on page 20 of your warrant, and it lists all of the municipal spending requests that will be before you at this town meeting. The budget request is $12,572,000, and that represents 90% of our total spending requests. And these total together are an increase of 1.2% over last year's spending. We also have self-funding programs in our budget that are in the warrant, and this shows you the self-funding programs that were just voted as enterprise funds and include the revolving fund article of 41. These are the major budget changes. They're not very exciting, just like the percentage increase. We have a COLA increase of 3%. We budgeted that in conjunction with the schools because that's actually their negotiated salary increase. We increased insurances and other expenses by 3% and built a budget on that. We expand staffing by adding 11.5 hours to the Council on Aging to cover their office during the lunchtime. And we add 5 hours a week to clerical staff in the cemeteries. The debt service, again, is a significant increase because of the decisions made last year, and 4 police cruisers round out the major changes. What are the major policy decisions affecting the budget for next year? We've attempted to hold the increase within Prop 2.5%, and we've certainly done that and exceeded that. We've avoided increasing staff for growth too soon. We know we're going to need growth in staff. We anticipate it, but rather than add it this year, we've decided to hold off until we have the expanded library in place and so forth. We've agreed to maintain current level of services, continue the sidewalk and road maintenance programs, continue our recycling commitment, and we've had an A from the DEP as a grade 2 years in a row. We tried to minimize our budget increases through the use of technology, and of course we always encourage volunteerism and want to bring your attention to the volunteer application form in the back of the warrant, because we badly need volunteers to supplement our paid services. And finally, we maximize information to the residents through the use of the municipal quarterly and also in mailing the warrants to every home this year. We have some major financial projections on the horizon. As we've said, we will need to increase staff. We have an upturn in the economy, which is good, makes us feel good. It provides opportunities for major funding initiatives. But we have to be careful that we don't go overboard. Inflation is under control at the moment, but we definitely need to keep an eye on that. And we see much improvement in the commercial sector. The vacancy rate right now is very low in Acton, and we hope that will lead to a more diversified tax base, which will benefit the residents. And finally, on the warrant, we've added a lot of new features to it this year, and we hope they've made the document more user-friendly and informative. And this is the second year only that we've mailed it to every household, and we will continue to do that as long as you tell us it's worth it and we can justify the cost. And we've also provided the budget detail in a separate document that was available before town meeting. Hope you've picked up a copy. We'd be happy to hear your comments about both of these activities. So in conclusion, our budget is, as we showed you, up 0.9%, and I'd like to thank you for your past support, and I appreciate your help on this one. Thank you.
David, I know you made your presentation. Do you have other comments on this article from the Finance Committee?
As you heard during my previous presentation, we looked at the town municipal budget. We were pleased with the 0.9% increase. One of the major things which helped the Finance Committee understand the makeup of the municipal budget was a full-day Saturday meeting we had with the Board of Selectmen in January. During this meeting, we gained an understanding of the details of the municipal budget, and we recommend this format for everyone. I encourage citizens to attend this meeting if they wish to be informed about how the municipal budget is built. We found it extremely useful. And of course, we recommend this budget.
Comments now from the town meeting members. Mr. Cady.
Bill Cady, 56 Strawberry Hill Road. Congratulations on holding your budget, but I guess I have to be the first bad guy. You can't let you get by without talking about the unions in this town. And you being the representatives here, the body of management, I view this as a shareholder in a corporation. If I had a union problem in the company, I addressed it at a shareholders meeting, at a town meeting. I think it's the correct forum for us to ask management what they're doing with the unions in this town. We have and then my second question, as a taxpayer, I'd like to know what happens to the funds for the fire department that were appropriated and they have been operating without a contract, and that increase hasn't gone into effect. And you show an increase from a fiscal year budget, and now you have a decrease in the fire department, but you said there's a 3% increase coming in. Is that the increment of from 4% increase that was voted in last year, and now a 3% increase that's voted in? Where does that money go to?
Mr. Cady, I think you've had two questions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Why don't we take the first question and let someone answer it, and then we'll take the second question, just for clarity's purposes. And I think you could be heard a little better if you step back just a tad from the microphone. Good, thank you.
I think the first question was the 3% and the 4%.
That's the second question. But where's the money that was appropriated and last year that wasn't paid? And how does the 3% increase relate to the 4% that was appropriated last year?
If you're talking about last year's budget, that's where we are now, fiscal year 97. And all collective bargaining, including highway, is that right? Fire, police, and highway are up for renegotiation this year. So those amounts will be negotiated. What we use when we talk about raising the COLA by a particular percentage, last year it was 4%, this year it was 3%. That's a planning tool. We have to budget a number. I mean, we could put in 1% or 10%, but we have to anticipate a range that would be covered in negotiating, and this year's 3% is actually what the schools negotiated, so it seemed to be as good a number as any to use. So that's how the percentage COLA assumptions are made when we create the budget. Now your question was about the money.
Well, with that money, where you appropriate the money, you don't spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, under normal fiscal, you don't spend it, it goes away. But under a union negotiation, you could, if they're operating without a contract, then many times you'll go back to when the contract was in effect, 2 years. If you go 2 or 3 years without an increase, and then you have a final settlement, it may include back wages in those prior years. So how do you account for that in the
Well,
town
let
budget?
me restate just the facts of where we are now without speculating about future years. Their contract ended June 30th, 1996, so we're in a new fiscal year, which granted they do not have a contract for, but that's something that needs to be negotiated, and those sessions have just begun. At the end of the year, any money that has not been spent, and also the FinCom and the Selectmen are very aware of this, become year-end surplus, which flows into free cash for the next year. But we are currently, this is a year for negotiating all contracts. So it's a little early to assume that there won't be one by the end of the fiscal year.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Cady?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Other comment? I see no one standing at any of the microphones, and therefore we will vote. All in favor of the motion as read under Article 8, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. I think this would be a good time before we move on to Article 9 to comment on something that Ms. Tavernier mentioned. She indicated that the town has a great many volunteers, and each year the Volunteer Coordinating Committee that helps the various appointing authorities to select candidates asks on behalf of the selectmen and the town manager and the other appointing authorities to recognize the very many people who do volunteer in this town. And rather than try to name everybody, or even name everybody who has just come off a board, what we will do, as we have done in the past, is we will name off the various boards on which volunteers work. We would ask any volunteer who is presently on that board as a full member or associate member, or anyone who has retired from that board in the past year or so, to please stand and remain standing. At the end, the town can recognize the volunteers with applause on all boards, but hold your applause until the end. You will also find that there will be many people who do volunteer on boards that are probably not here tonight, so the number of people standing will not represent the entire group of volunteers. So let me read off the committees, and anyone who is serving on this committee in any capacity or has in recent past, please stand. The Acton Boxborough Cultural Council, the Board of Appeals, the Board of Assessors, the Board of Health, the Cable Advisory Committee, the Cemetery Commission, the Commission on Disability, the Conservation Commission, the Council on Aging, the Fair Housing Committee, the Finance Committee, the Hanscom Field Advisory Commission, the Historic District Commission, the Historical Commission, the Lower Regional Transportation Authority, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, Minuteman Home Care, Minuteman Vocational School Committee, Personnel Board, Planning Board, the Prison Advisory Committee, Public Ceremonies and Celebrations Committee, Recreation Commission, Second Airport Fort Devens Reuse Task Force, South Acton Revitalization Committee, Town Report Committee, Volunteer Coordinating Committee. We might as well name the School Committee and the Board of Selectmen as well. Now we can applaud their volunteerism. Thank you. And a special thanks to the Volunteer Coordinating Committee, because without their help, we would not have as many fine volunteers as we do. I'll now move to Article 9, which is accepting Section 108L of Chapter 41, the Quinn Bill. I'm a little uncertain as to what we're going to do, so let me just counsel for a minute with two gentlemen here. All right, under Article 9, the motion is this. Mr. Haas moves that the town accept Section 108L of Chapter 41 of the Massachusetts General Laws relating to a police career incentive pay program as set forth in this article. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Haas.
My name is Wayne Hayes. I live on Duggan Road in Acton. Mr. Moderator, I would like to request that during part of this discussion that Officer Fred Rentschler, who's to my left here, be allowed to address the town.
Okay, Officer Rentschler is not a citizen of the town, I take it, and that's why you're asking for that. Our practice in this town is to take a vote of the town to see if they wish to hear from this gentleman. He is president of the union. We will take that vote. All in favor of allowing Mr. Rentschler to talk to this article, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Hayes, you may go ahead as you see fit.
Thank you. The Quinn Bill, as said in the warrant article, is an educational incentive for law enforcement officers. Now, the question is, what exactly is the Quinn Bill? The Quinn Bill is part of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108L, that was passed by the state legislature back in 1970. It provides pay incentives for degrees in law enforcement. It is factored on the base pay, meaning it affects the officer's base pay. And the real advantage of this particular program is that the town pays half and that the state pays half of the total cost. Now, since 1970, 27 years, it has been adopted by the state police. It has been adopted by 171 communities and towns throughout the Commonwealth, which actually represents more than 50% of all the police departments in these groups. Now, rarely are good deals free, as you probably would guess. So the question is, what is the cost of this program? The estimate for this year, this next fiscal year, is that the total would be $121,982. Now, there's some qualifications for this, and I need to explain a few things on this graph. The first part is that the town would be required to pay half of that, or about $60,000. In return, the state would pay an additional $60,000. Now, one extra point to bring up here is that currently there is an incentive program already in place, which is of a smaller size, and it is budgeted in the current fiscal budget, and it amounts to the sum of $32,600. So what do we really have to pay? What it means is that this year we would have to allocate an additional $88,000 to total up to the $121,000. Now, this allocation means we have to allocate it, and so it would affect things such as the bond rates and free cash, that sort of thing. But the actual amount that we have to spend at the end of the year, how much will it have cost us? It will cost us an additional $28,000 approximately. Notice that the $28,000 here is the bottom figure, We have to pay $28,000, and in exchange, here at the top, the state pays the $60,000. This is not a bad deal. We get more than $2 per dollar from the state. I would also like to point out that the $28,000 figure is less than 0.1% of our current operating budget here in the town. So it really doesn't represent a large figure in terms of the budget. And of course, if we spend that additional $28,000, we get the $60,000 from the state. What if we don't, excuse me, what if we do not adopt this plan? During the last 20 years, the Acton Police Department has lost 20 officers to other towns and private sector. And more particularly, in the last 4 years, 6 officers have left the police department. They have all gone to towns that have the Quinn bill, the incentive plan of the Quinn bill. Now, additionally, 5 of those 6 were trained here in Acton. Additionally, the 6 people that were replacing those, the people that left, 5 of those 6 also were trained here in Acton. Now, what does it cost to train a police officer? First of all, he has to spend time at the police academy. Then there is in-service training, and his absence has to be covered by extra shifts. It turns out that when you go through all the numbers, it amounts to a little over $50,000. So if you think about it, what we have done is over the last 4 years, $250,000 has been spent in training people who left. And another $250,000 was spent in training the replacements. So over the last several years, we've had $500,000 of our money has been spent in this training process. Obviously, the 6 are still here, but that's been an expensive proposition. Why did these officers leave? If you look at the difference between the educational incentive that is currently in the Acton program and what the Quinn bill provides, there's an actual incentive or an advantage to starting out in Acton, being trained, and then leaving Acton and going to another municipality that has the Quinn bill. It just makes fiscal sense. You get more money. So why should we adopt this Quinn bill? Oops. There's several points to be made here. One is that revenue is returned back to the town. This is revenue that the state has gotten from our own income tax and will come back to the town of Acton to the tune of $60,000 for an additional $28,000 that we spend. It will help save future revenues. By that I mean that it will reduce the number of people that are leaving Acton, and it will reduce the number that require being trained by Acton. It will contribute to building a better police service, because I think we all had better agree that education pays for itself. If not, I suspect we're in the wrong business here. Education is a very high priority here in Acton, and clearly this would help the police department. It will also keep Acton more competitive in its hiring policies. It would allow for lateral transfers to Acton from other municipalities rather than encouraging them to leave Acton. And one more thing, it strengthens the commitment of the police department to the community. The police department is very much behind this. They really would like to have this program. And at a time when I pick up the Beacon and I see headlines dealing with drugs and sexual abuse in the high school, it's very disconcerting to know that we might be compromising our police department. It turns out that half, or greater than half actually, of the police department are actual graduates of this high school. And we would like to keep them here. And I think it is in Acton's best interest to provide them with the best educational plan and the most encouragement to stay in this community. It clearly helps the community and helps our young people. So to summarize my portion of this discussion, I would say that the Quinn bill basically means two things. It's a cost-effective investment. It's not free, it's about $28,000 a year, but it makes an enormous amount of sense. And the second thing that it improves the police services. The quality of the police department and the police services, by increasing their education, will be tremendous. Now, I would like to turn it over to Officer Fred Rentschler here of the Acton Police Department, who will continue on.
Before we go any further, the town's going to point out several points tonight. Okay, I'd like to address them first off. In order to implement the Quinn bill in any town, it cannot be bargained. The town is going to say the Quinn bill should have been bargained. Second point, the law requires an increase in overtime rates. It does not necessarily do that, and I'll explain why. The third one, there will be 2 educational incentives in effect. That will not happen, and I'll explain why. The fourth, the town will be legally bound to fund both of the above. That will not happen, and I'll explain why. The town will never be able to remove the Quinn bill once it is voted in. You guessed it. I'll explain why. Argument number 1, the Quinn bill should have been bargained. The Quinn bill cannot be bargained. The Quinn bill cannot be obtained through the collective bargaining process. The town is legally unable to provide the Quinn bill because the terms of Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108L, the career incentive payments are only lawful upon the statute's acceptance by the townspeople, being you. Where did I get that? That was from the Massachusetts Labor Relations Commission, and it's a cite on the Massachusetts labor case, the town of Westport versus their union. At the time, it was AFSCME. That was a 1982 case. Argument number 2. The Quinn bill will require an increase in overtime rates. The union and the police association would alleviate the town of any such requirements by modifying the terms of the Quinn bill as allowed under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 147, Section 17B. That law gives us the freedom to modify the Quinn bill and how it is worked into the collective bargaining agency, that being the police department. The third argument, there will be 2 educational incentives in effect. If the Quinn bill were accepted by town meeting tonight, we would replace our existing Quinn bill, we would replace our existing degree incentive program in favor of the Quinn bill. The existing funds for the present system would be applied towards the Quinn bill. Mr. Haas had explained it earlier, how we already have $32,000 budgeted. That would be applied towards the additional funds needed to fund the Quinn bill. Sorry, Steve. Argument number 4. The town would legally be bound to increase overtime rates and fund the existing educational incentive. Again, I'll refer to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 147, Section 17B, which addresses both of those concerns. It allows the bargaining agencies to define how the Quinn bill is going to be administered. There's no requirements, once you get the Quinn bill, to increase overtime rates. There are no requirements to increase any of the factors that the town will present to you. We can work with those, but we have to have the townspeople approve the Quinn bill first before we can enter into an agreement and modify those. And lastly, argument number 5. The town will never be able to remove the Quinn Bill once it is voted in. The Quinn Bill may be rescinded by the town as provided under Mass General Laws, Chapter 4, Section 4B. I think I'll leave that up there. In closing, the police department has come before you tonight in an effort to get the Quinn Bill. We're putting ourselves before the townspeople in good faith, hoping to address our concerns to you, as Mr. Hayes has done earlier, and just present ourselves as town employees, putting ourselves to you tonight. Thank you.
Okay, before we hear from the town meeting members, we'll hear from Ms. Tavernier from the Board of Selectmen, and then the Finance Committee. Ms. Tavernier.
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. The Board of Selectmen is unanimously opposed to Article 9 and Article 10, as we've noted in the warrant, and we gave you a fairly lengthy explanation on our position. In this presentation, I would like to explain why. I stand before you tonight in a rather uncomfortable position of having to recommend against a small group of town employees. Like any family, we don't always agree with each other, but we have to respect each other's opinions. And I do understand the opinions offered, and I would suggest that it is not unusual for employees to ask for a raise, but I disagree with the process and the premise on which these requests are made. Acton has a fine police department. In fact, it's one of the top police departments in the country. In August of 1992, the Acton Police Department was awarded the prestigious award of accreditation by the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, becoming the 250th department out of 17,000 eligible departments in the United States and Canada to receive this status. We are proud of the accomplishments of our police department, and our opposition to these two articles should not be construed to reflect negatively on our department. I was curious about the reasons that the state legislature adopted this bill in 1970, so I did a little research, because I wanted to better understand the rationale behind it and what they hoped to accomplish. Many of us, and I know I do, remember that 1970 was not the best time to be a police officer in this country. During the 1960s and 1970s, a number of riots broke out in cities throughout the United States. In trying to control the rioters, whether they were college students protesting the Vietnam War, blacks in city ghettos, or protesters at the famous Chicago Democratic Convention, the police were sometimes charged with using unnecessary force. Hostility toward police officers became widespread, and especially among minority groups. It was not the high point in the history of the police movement, and that was 1970. One of the first things the newly elected President Nixon did in 1970 was to push through a series of domestic reforms, which included the sharing of billions of dollars of federal tax revenues with state and local government. That's money that is long gone now. It disappeared over 10 years ago. But some of those dollars flowed to Massachusetts specifically to create programs to upgrade the quality of police officers by offering continuing education incentives. And that's how the Quinn Bill came to be. The state established a program to leverage local funds which would be used to improve the quality of police candidates. Today, the job of police officer is a coveted position, and that's evidenced by the large numbers of young men and young women who are entering the field. I would now like to take several of the points that have been presented by the Acton Police Association and offer the Selectmen's point of view. First, first, why don't we look at the facts and look at the areas that we have agreement on, although after hearing the presentation, there may be one or two that we don't agree on. But let's, for the moment, look at these facts. Indeed, we agree it was adopted by the legislature in 1970. Apparently, we don't agree that you cannot exit the agreement once accepted. There is no way to get out of it, and communities have tried that, and we can verify that. The next area is future legislative amendments will be binding. We agree that the legislature could amend the bill at any time, and we would have to accept the changes to it. Such changes could be to increase the percentage of the incentive bonus or even decrease the state reimbursement. We would have to accept that. The town must appropriate 100% of the cost that it is incurred because of the Quinn bill. We have to appropriate 100%, not 50%. That's part of the municipal finance regulations. We agree that state reimbursement is retroactive. It comes the next fiscal year after it has been generated. And that puts us in 2 different fiscal years when we're appropriating. The state historically underfunds the Quinn bill. Let's look at the facts on that. In the last 10 years, you will see that the state only hit their 50% share in 3 years, 1993, 1994, and 1995. And even when the legislature approves an additional supplement for the current fiscal year, which is presently in front of the Senate Ways and Means, it will still only bring the state share up to 44.7%, and the projection of the governor's budget for next year would put the state share at 44.5%. We agree that the town and the union have bargained the existing educational bonuses that we have in the town. Down at the bottom part of this, this is the existing education incentive bonus contract, what is between the town of Acton and the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, and that's the educational incentive clause. We support education incentive programs. That's why it's in the current contract. This reward for furthering education is $1,300 a year for an associate degree, $1,700 a year for a bachelor's degree, $2,000 a year for a master's degree or law degree, and these bonuses are given above and beyond the base salary with their negotiated increases each year. We think the appropriate forum for negotiating an education incentive program is in the collective bargaining arena, and it is inappropriate to be at town meeting. We agree that the Quinn bill benefits are computed with specific percentages on the base salary, and we agree that the amounts under the Quinn bill are greater than the current education incentive program in the contract. For an associate's degree under the Quinn bill, it would give a 10% bonus at the lowest step, that would be $3,100, and at the highest step, $6,500. The 20% range, which is for bachelor degrees, would give $6,200 bonus to the lowest step, up to $13,000 at the top step. And with the 25% stipend for master's and law degrees, the range is $78,000 to $16,250. Again, on top of the base salary with its negotiated wage increases. The average percentage increase for Acton officers would be 15%, given the level of education they have. If the Quinn bill is adopted by this town meeting, the total cost for next year would be $162,500, and that is where our list of agreement ends. Here's where we disagree. It does not make good economic sense for the town to adopt the Quinn bill, and here are some of the reasons why. Overtime pay increases with base pay. Overtime pay for each officer is calculated on the base pay, including the Quinn bill bonuses. That is required by Federal Fair Labor Standard Act. That is a federal law. It cannot be negotiated away. The state only reimburses the communities, however, for the Quinn bill bonus as it applies to the base pay. So the increased cost of overtime would be paid 100% by the Acton taxpayers, and so will the pension increases that will come as a result of increased earnings. And we have a written opinion from the Attorney General on this point. The second point of disagreement is that the state does not cover 50% of the Quinn cost. It does not make economic sense because they don't cover the promised 50%, and that only applies to the base pay, and the taxpayers not only have to pay the difference between 50% and what they cover on the base pay, but they have to cover, the taxpayers have to pay all the other increased costs too. And again, because of municipal finance regulations, the town meeting has to appropriate 100% of that cost each year. The third area of disagreement is the union and association agreements. They are not legal, in our opinion. It does not make economic sense because the adjustments to the payment schedule and the methodology that the union and association have agreed to and presented here are simply not legal. You cannot bargain away a state law and its stipulations. In response to the 6 points that the union listed, we say the first being that the contract would be revised in collective bargaining session to give up the bonus, the current one. That must be negotiated, yes, that's true, but that can't be done here at town meeting, and there's simply no guarantee that that will happen. The second point, which is that the town is not liable for the state shortfalls, that is against state law. The third point, the Quinn increases will not be factored into the overtime and pensions, that's against federal law. The fourth, the town appropriation, they will propose to put half into a savings account, that's against state law. The fifth would be to accept the state share without liability to the town for the shortfall. That's also against state law. And the sixth, that they would accept the Quinn checks separate from the normal paychecks, and that too is against the state law. And we have, our responses are based on the opinions of the Attorney General, Massachusetts case law, and town council. The final and most compelling reason that this does not make economic sense for Acton is the issue of training cost and turnover that has become the rallying cry for this issue. Let's get the facts straight on this too. In the first place, of the last 10 hires, 3 of them came here fully trained, courtesy of other communities. But let's assume for the moment that the cost to train a new police officer is $55,315, and that's the number that was used in a presentation to the FinCom. Tonight's number was a little bit lower. The union presented a 34-week training schedule, and they used a $20,650 base salary and a shift coverage of about $35,000, giving a total cost to train a recruit at some $55,000. I think their presentation was $53,000. But let's look at the actual, and actually as of this afternoon I discovered the actual is not 32 weeks, it's really 30, so these numbers should have been adjusted down. We say that a base salary for a recruit at 32 weeks would be $19,000, but what they're doing, the reason you have a recruit is because somebody left. So you have the savings of the salary of the person that left, and that average salary is $40,000, so over 32 weeks, that savings is $25,200. And the whole point of using the average salary of the college-educated officers is because those are the officers that we're in fear of losing, according to the presentation. Then we go on, so the total savings to the town, actually the total savings rather than cost is little over $6,000. Then we move on to shift coverage expenses. That's part of the overtime budget. There is zero overtime added because of a recruit that's being trained. There's zero impact to the town on that. And then measure that with the Quinn bill cost for next year, $162,000. And then I ask, does this make good economic sense? Let's look at the issue on turnover. Have we lost officers to Quinn communities? Well, since 1977, that's 20 years, 20 officers have left the police department. That's true. Only 8 of those continued in another police department. The rest went into private or the government sector. Of those 8, only 3 went to Quinnville communities because the community of Leominster, where 4 of our officers went, do not cover anybody that was hired after 1982. So in fact, those 4 officers did not go to Leominster because they had the Quinn bill. The reason they went to Leominster is because in 1993, President Clinton pushed through, similar to President Nixon, a federal crime act, and a lot of money flowed to rural cities such as Leominster. They received a grant of $525,000 to hire new officers and to pay overtime, and that is why those officers went there. If you remember 1993 from my budget presentation, we had not only lost an override that year, but because it was the first year of education reform, we put in a spending freeze, and that included a freeze on overtime coverage. There was no overtime available in 1993 in the police department. 4 officers went to Leominster, where the overtime money was flowing. Furthermore, 20 of our 29 officers have college degrees or some level of college work, and they all came here without the Quinn bill. Our last 10 hires have included 7 with college degrees. Why is that? Acton is a great place to work. We give the top benefits. We pay 90% of the Cadillac health care plan. We provide state-of-the-art equipment in the cruisers, and we back it up with support of technology in the police station. We provide training opportunities and protective gear, and we annually provide new and reliable cruisers, which you just voted, and the crime rate is not very high compared to many of the Quinn communities where they truly do need to have an incentive to attract good police officers. In summary, in our opinion, the Quinn bill is bad public policy. It only rewards 17 people in one department. It is divisive in a department where officers doing the same work no longer would get the same pay because they didn't have a college degree. Once voted, you bind all future town meetings to appropriating these funds, even if the community's priorities have changed. You cannot get out of the obligations of the Quinn bill. It circumvents the labor union management process, it raids free cash, and it is just the tip of the iceberg. The real potential exists for employee groups to come to future town meetings or to demand similar compensation in future bargaining sessions. You've heard the Finance Committee presentation that warns of looming operating deficits. This bill will only increase those further. You will hear the school committee talk about unfunded state mandates in their presentation. If you adopt this, it will be an unfunded local mandate. And remember, there is no escape clause. We can't afford the Quinn bill, and you can't afford the Quinn bill. It's your money. Please vote no.
We can now hear from the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Don. I don't have a prepared presentation. I feel a bit like Tedgar, Fiddler on the Roof, where I'm torn between two sides. And if you recall that play, the father was torn between the love of his daughter and the rules of his religion. And I think in our situation, we have the strength and character of our administration and the rules of how they want to run the town. And we have a police department as well as other municipal workers who certainly have done a great job in our town, and we respect them greatly and continue to provide a lot of services. Yet, even in your warrant article you have in front of you, you recognize that at the time of printing this article, the FinCom had not taken a position. Much of this was because we were trying to get clarity on both sides of the issue and understand them. And after having presentations from both sides, I think we could try to boil this down into 5 cogent points. And I'll list them briefly. First, is this a negotiation item or a town meeting item? Secondly, do we truly believe that we're losing police officers for lack of having the Quinn bill? Third, what is the total compensation package, and is this a piece of action on behalf of town meeting that should be included as part of that package? Fourth, what really is the public law? What really is the obligations of the town? What financial commitments are we taking within this? And finally, can we afford it? I'll work my way back up that list. First, can we afford it? Well, you heard Dave speak earlier about free cash, the budget. His free cash estimates, as well as the budget numbers that you saw, did not include funding of this warrant article. So to the extent that it's passed, we'll have to take, depending on which argument you hear, from $30,000 to $160,000 out of free cash and set aside for this issue. So, yeah, the money's probably there. It's not a huge sum compared to some other articles on the ballot tonight. Moving back up my list. Public law. There's some controversy here on either side of that. Well, who's right? Well, my investigation of this law is that it tends to weigh on the side that it is in fact a law that town meeting only has the right to pass on. Now, you heard that it's not, or is not necessarily a negotiating item. Yet you also heard that there are a bunch of caveats that the Policemen's Association is willing to trade off in terms of how this bill is implemented. Such things as don't apply to overtime, take away the other part of the current incentives. Well, to me, those things, and I think to many of the members of the FinCom, those sound a lot like negotiating items. So to the extent that in other towns where they passed the Quinn bill, at least to the extent that we could explore, the Quinn bill was negotiated. In other words, it was part of a compensation package that then the town management brought to town meeting to approve and pass. So both sides are sort of right. It's not a negotiation item to the extent that town meeting passes it, yet it is a tool to town management when there are other things on the table to be negotiated. Which brings me to the total compensation package. Many of the towns that have the Quinn bill in place do in fact have a much more reasonable health care package. The town of Acton, for the police department, has a 90-10 split. The town pays 90%, as I understand it, for Master Health Plus. Those of you who've ever had Master Health Plus know that that's a great package, but many of the towns have either backed away to a different split or to a managed care program. And if any of you have ever managed an organization and worried about the HR packages, as I'm sure many of you had, you do look at more than just the salary. You look at the total compensation plan. And I think you've heard some details on that tonight. So that brings us back to the issue of ultimately, do we truly believe that this is necessary to retain our police officers? The discussion about whether or not these police officers are leaving to towns because of the Quinn bill, whether Nancy's figures are exactly correct or Fred's numbers are exactly correct. The problem is we don't know for sure the causal effect is either way. I would suggest that the fact that it snowed on April 1st might mean that the orbit of the Earth has changed. Thereby we have more snow. The fact of the matter is, upon questioning at the FinCom presentation, it was not clear that, in fact, officers are leaving because of the Quinn bill. And the Finance Committee then has recommended against passing this article, in particular because we believe it does, in fact, remove from the packages of things that can be offered at the negotiation table and be discussed at that location. So we have recommended against this bill.
Other comment? And now it's open for general comment. I see see some people wending their way to the microphone. I think the gentleman in the back microphone is the first to speak.
Yeah, I'm Don Perkins, East Acton, Spring Hill Road. I'd like to take exception to two statements that were made in the police presentation. The first one was that because the state gives back 50% of the cost, namely about $60,000, and that's theoretical, that the town only has to stand an extra marginal additional cost of about $28,000. I'd just like to point out that we're citizens of Acton, but we're also citizens of the Commonwealth, and your state taxes are due next week. And you'll only pay that way. The other comment that was made is that the money comes back to the town, that's $60,000. Well, it doesn't really come back to the town. It comes back to the police force. And the taxpayers of Acton don't get any benefit from that, but the police do.
Mr. Quigley. I'm sorry, before we do this, could I get a show of hands, or would you stand up, because it's a little hard for me to see with just a show of hands? How many people intend right now to speak on this article, other than those who are standing? Anybody? Or is that pretty much it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 or 6 people standing. What I was going to do was divide up between pro and con microphones, but I won't do that because there aren't that many people. I'll recognize Mr. Quigley now.
Mr. Moderator Larry Quigley, 25 Captain Brown's Lane. And my fellow members of town meeting, I ask, how would you or I have reacted if either of us had been the officer called to the scene when the burglary of valuable computer equipment at Speedware Computers occurred about 3:30 a.m. a month ago? It was a woman officer on our force who bravely conducted her search in the woods behind the store and made the arrests with 2 other members of the force, of young juveniles from Acton together with an adult from Maynard, even though these burglars were using state-of-the-art high-tech sensing equipment. How about the full array of traffic stops day or night, with officers not knowing who or what they will encounter? And there is the increase of drug-related problems, of domestic violence, and of fraud and business crime, including the attempted robbery of some of our local banks. Who could have imagined the plot straight out of a TV thriller 3 years ago that took place outside and inside Kmart, where robbers had gone through the roof to blow up a safe and were planning their getaway, only to